speeches and around Parliament for Julian Assange. We've got a wide variety of supporters who are here today, and they've essentially come to demonstrate for freedom of speech, political liberty, which it's the mantra of our government, bourgeois nations. But the imprisonment, the unjust imprisonment of Julian Assange, amazingly, for telling the truth about the crimes committed in this building, the crimes committed by our parliamentarians, by our government, by Tony Blair, by Gordon Brown, by David Cameron, by
if you want to join the human chain, come this way.
Theresa May, by Boris Johnson, and now by Liz Truss. War after war, privatisation after privatisation, corruption after corruption, massacre after massacre, the genocides committed. This aspects of this genocide, of the corrupt policies made, anti-democratic decisions made, have been exposed by WikiLeaks, by Julian Assange. Essentially, this is what journalism is meant to be, the so-called fourth estate in our country that guarantees freedom and democracy. But the reality is that democracy has been undermined. There is no freedom of speech. That our corporate media sing a single tune, and from many voice pieces, from many mouthpieces, many papers. Even you pick up papers that people assume tell a different message, like The Guardian. They are absolutely mouthpieces of neoliberal ideology. So people have come today to join hands to surround Parliament and protest that Julian Assange is a political prisoner held in Belmar.
Please walk this way, go over the river, turn right, get to the end of the chain, and then walk this way to join the human
Essentially,
chain.
what people are realising, we do not have in this country. So we're going to walk around Parliament, we're going to see who we see. There's a Venezuelan flag there. A lot of tourists in the area, as you'd expect. Anyway, Liberate Julian Assange. So people from all over the world are here. Free Julian Assange, liberate Julian Assange. Putting our hands together around Parliament.
Yeah, they're gonna be standing there.
Good crowd turnout. Towards the tourist area, there are always people here. Cuban flag here. Cuban flag here. Assange is joining us today. Stop and see the messages. Whistleblowers tell the truth and need protection. The constant message. Okay, so the concept that democracy is possible and there's no freedom of speech, but actually the real mechanism by which Britain is controlled is through controlling information narrative, building a false narrative, whether that's the war in Ukraine, the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan. There's a NATO predatory wars for domination, and we let them stand. Then we are doomed forever to be victims. We'll walk around now, keep on going. Let's see how far we've been able to succeed in putting our hands around Parliament. Julian Assange, ist ein Politiker. Hi! How are you? I'm live streaming coverage. You don't want to be on the video?
No.
How are you? People, have you met up with anyone else?
Yes, well, I'm just going to find them now.
I think they're that way around. I'm going to walk around and I'll meet you there.
All right.
See you soon. Take care, my darling. Sorry about that. Meeting friends and comrades from all over the country. So many people have come out to show their support. And you can see the yellow ribbon. There's not yellow ribbon for support for the Iraq War. There's yellow ribbon for support for Julian's freedom. I'm not sure who chose the yellow ribbon, but there we are. That's the symbol that we've chosen. That's the symbol people have taken on. Don't extradite Assange. So the lie was that Julian was self-imprisoning in the Ecuadorian embassy, and he was doing that to avoid extradition to Scandinavian countries, Sweden, for alleged crimes. Now those crimes turned out to be totally false. We know that our very own Keir Starmer, as DPS, Director of Public Prosecutions, intervened when those charges were going to be dropped to ensure that they were kept there. So those charges were false and they were politically motivated, and they were motivated by the desire to punish anyone who would expose crimes committed from this seat, this hallowed seat, the so-called Mother of Parliament, which, as we know, is mother of injustice and mother of war, and has been for many centuries. So it's for that reason that Assange has been, first of all, under essentially house arrest in the Ecuadorian embassy, and then when the new government came and turfed him out of the Ecuadorian embassy, collaborated with the British state and arranged for him to be arrested. Then he has been in Belmarsh. He's in Belmarsh for allegedly a crime of breaching the official secrets act, which has a maximum punishable sentence for a year. He's been there for several years now, 3 years. And over that period of time, he's had multiple hearings in which it's clear that ultimately there's a will of the British state to extradite him to Ecuador, to the United States, where he's likely to languish for the rest of his natural life in prison. Finally, we found some people who are
Free Assange! Organize the working class! Done with imperialist lies! Free Assange!
Nice, very nice. Can I? I'm just doing a little live stream. Yes. No one will ever watch my live stream, but can I ask you what you're doing here?
I think every progressive human being is here making a human chain around the Houses of Parliament in defense of the truth, against imperialist lies, against the corporate lies, against the death sentence that they are giving for the brave journalist Julian Assange. Every progressive is here today, but it is not enough. If we come as individuals, we need to organize together against the wars that they fight in the name of the 1%.
So I'm going to ask you a provocative question.
Yes?
Why should we care? Why should for the British people? There are lots of people here today, but there are lots of people when you ask them, they either don't know who he is, or they'll tell you what they've heard in the media, which is that he was a rapist.
Yes.
Why should they support a rapist? So, and I'm going to ask you that deliberately, because that's the question that people who are watching will want to know. Why should British workers care about Julian Assange?
Because British workers somehow know now that the mainstream media is lying. And whenever they demonize someone and they find an accusation, outrageous accusation to make against them, it's because they feel threatened. And somehow the working people understand that the media does not serve them. The media serves the 1%, and they are choosing to demonize every decent journalist. Assange, it is a big cause, and he's paying a heavy price because they want to turn him into an example. But every human,
and what's his
decent human journalist...
What's his crime in their eyes then?
The crime in their eyes is that he's exposed the crimes of imperialism.
And what are those crimes?
The crimes of imperialism.
What crimes?
The wars that they are fighting in the name of profit and of greed and of the corporations. The logic of capitalism, that it is to expand and it is to dominate and it will never rest. And he exposed the workings of this system that is linked to capitalist profit. And even though, he did it within what he believed is the democratic freedom of speech that they say exists in the West, he exposed the limits of it. It's very easy for the West to accuse other countries of totalitarianism and authoritarianism, but we see how it treats its own people that choose to say the truth. The objective truth.
So you think he's essentially a political prisoner?
I think that the truth is beyond individuals, and the truth that he exposed, yes, it is the truth as a political hostage, and Assange represents this, so that every progressive human being should stand here today.
You've got a journal there, what is that?
The journal, this journal that you can find in a display cabinet in the Museum of London, so that the British state can pose as an inclusive and diverse state, is the oldest anti-imperialist newspaper publication that exists in this country, and it is a rallying call in red about...
Where can we get hold of a copy of that?
Oh yes, only £1 is the latest copy of Lalkar, and it has proven to be very popular today, so I'm very pleased.
Keep up.
Thank you.
Thanks for speaking to us. We're going to carry on our walk around Parliament.
Free Assange!
Bye-bye. And there you have it. So it's lots of different people. And if you ask a different person, they'll tell you a different answer. Not everyone will want to participate in the live stream. I'm sure we'll have a little look at that banner. It's not just Julian Assange in the dock. Sorry guys, do you mind? It's just like a YouTube thing. It has no viewers. Some. Beside him sit the fundamental tenets of media freedoms that underpin the rights of freedom of expression and the public's right of access to information. Silence Assange and they will gag others. And they do gag others, don't they? They do. Okay, thanks so much. Even Amnesty International here. Amnesty International played a curious role, haven't they? Because Amnesty International, of course, were complicit in the war propaganda that brought about the Iraq War and justified it. The so-called baby incubator story, in which the Iraqi soldiers were meant to have invaded Kuwait and turfed children or babies, neonatal babies, out of their incubators and taken those incubators back to Iraq. Turned out to be total fabrication. And of course, Amnesty International were absolutely complicit in peddling that false narrative. So interesting that they're now trying to defend free speech. Guys, would you mind speaking to me for a second?
Who is it for?
It's for people who watch YouTube, whoever it's going to be.
Go on then, you're a good speaker.
No, you're a good speaker.
Oh, no, I'm not. You know your stuff.
It's really simple.
What do you want to ask?
Basically, a little bit about why you're here. Maybe you can say vaguely what area of the country you're from and why you think it's important for other British working people, this cause.
Come on.
Do you reckon you can do that?
Yeah.
So if you want to tell me your name, you can. If you don't, that's all right.
No, I'll prefer
no
not
problem.
to.
So would you mind telling me, why are you here today?
Just because reporting crime is not a crime, so I think it's wrong that Julian Assange is in prison for exposing war crimes, especially when the people that have done the war crimes haven't been investigated, haven't been prosecuted, haven't been punished for it, and then to punish the person that wrote them stories, I think it's just wrong. So.
And can you give us an example of like a bit of Julian Assange or WikiLeaks footage or media that you've seen that you think was very powerful in exposing
I think obviously
the British imperialism?
The footage, obviously, where you can see the Apache helicopter shooting the civilians. I think
it's
the Reuters
just disgusting,
journalists.
isn't it? I mean, to see that, and then to be told that we're there for democracy, human rights,
you
literally see an Apache helicopter hovering. Civilians, he's getting permission to shoot them, and then literally massacres civilians in front of you. And then they never commented on that.
They're supposed to be doing that on behalf of us. Like, that's our government supposed to be doing that on behalf of us. I don't stand for that.
And it makes you realise the whole thing was a tissue of lies to justify stealing oil, stealing wealth, stealing their gold,
and the person
funding wars,
that.
making an absolute killing financially for big companies who they're just over there. They're about 2 miles over there is the City of London. They're the people who made the real money. And it turns out our government, the Tony Blair government, Gordon Brown government, served those people, not us. And that's still what we're living with, basically. So this really keys into that very directly, doesn't it?
100%. And then to prosecute the person that told us about that, it's just ridiculous. It don't make any sense, and that we shouldn't stand for that.
Not know our name.
Shouldn't.
Guys, so good to speak to you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking to us. All the best. Thank you. Have a good day. And as we carry on around our little walk around Parliament, you can see Parliament is surrounded. But do our rulers care? Do our rulers care? Will we make a difference? So that depends on you, really. Depends on the people who are passive and are not here today. Depends how much you feel is worth taking control your country. Thank you so much. That is great. So look, stewarded. We are surrounded. We are surrounded. Just keep going. It's got immediate interest. So we're entering the park by Westminster.
Not live at the moment. No. Thank you. But what we want to to.
Chris on.
Is it going down this way?
Yes.
Oh, so sorry. So sorry. Chris on. Let's have a little look over here. Who's this? Emmeline Pankhurst. Look at that, Emmeline Pankhurst. Someone else, suffragettes who are now deified, but of course at the time was thought to be a dangerous revolutionary. Not Emmeline, it was Sylvia. Sylvia Pankhurst, of course, was a leading founder of the British Communist Party. And we know that perhaps this statue will be joined one day by a statue of Julian Assange, amongst others, people who actually fight for liberty, justice, freedom for the British people. You will know something about her. But don't be fooled.
Good work. Hello, guys.
Do you mind if you don't have to speak, would you mind saying, well, I'm going to do a little live stream just to ask people why they're here. Turn it down just while you decide whether that would be right. Would you mind?
Yeah, well, full disclosure, I stood for you guys in Epsom.
That's all right, no worries. So you don't have to tell your name if you want, but you can if you want.
No, okay.
But can I ask you why you're here?
Yeah.
And what this means to you? And I'm going to give you advance notice to think about it. Why you think it should matter to normal British workers? Why should they care?
So yeah, I'm here today to form the human chain to protest the incarceration of Julian Assange in Belmarsh High Security Prison. I think it's really important to everyone, workers especially, that the freedom of the press to report on misdemeanours, to report on what is happening to people these days is allowed to take place. I think workers are in a tough time at the moment, and I think that the media is colluding with powerful parts of the government to withhold information from workers. We can see lots of strikes happening at the moment, and fair and free reporting of that is something that's often withheld in the media. It's just an example that kind of will strike at the heart of anyone who's working in an environment where they need to strike. Of course, Julian Assange has been in prison now for almost 10 years, or incarceration at the embassy, which is a really, really difficult thing to have happen to anyone. And I think the rule of law is important, and we need to respect that. So showing solidarity by being here today.
Thank you so much. And if I were to ask you what you think is the most important issue at the moment, which we're being lied to about in the British media, or can you think of a couple? Can you think of any?
Where to begin? I think it's austerity for everyone except the socialism that exists at the very top. I think there's tax cuts for everyone except for those that can offshore their money. There are stealth of hand cuts happening at the moment that don't hit the mainstream news. Everyone's focusing on the 1% or the 45% reduction down to 40%, but actually there's stealth cuts that cost people who are working people twice as much as it will save them by having these headlines.
And I think that's brilliantly summated. So basically, the cost of living crisis, we're all facing it. We're all wondering how our conditions of life are going to be affected. Already 5% of the British people are homeless, and it's going to increase.
Yeah.
Schooling's getting worse, education's getting worse, our health system is getting worse. All of this money is being robbed from us and directly funneled into the profits of the corporate elite. And actually, that includes the wars, that includes the attacks on our public service. So it's a very joined-up system. And our press is part of that ruling propaganda machine that allows it to happen and conditions us to accept it. So I think you're right. Let's go straight to the heart of that issue. And thank you for being here today. Thank you for speaking to us.
I think just final message, solidarity.
You want to give? Yeah?
Solidarity. You will be asked by people in power to blame other people, migrants, people of colour, people who are worse off than you. That benefit street mentality is an awful message that the working class, some of them, are buying into. You need to look at who holds and wields the power and not people who are only slightly better off than you. Look at the people that are really robbing from you by offshoring their money.
That's a really powerful message. Thanks for being here. Good to see you again.
Pleasure.
We'll meet again.
Yeah, we will do.
All the best.
Take care, man.
Bye. And there you have it. So, solidarity against the interests of the elite with the interests of the poor. And Julian has become one symbol of our struggle for freedom of speech. And you can see there, demonstration continues. I think it may even go down to the next bridge. So if you look back upon the Houses of Parliament, the Houses of Parliament, the mother of Parliament, we're encouraged to revere as an institution of democracy, but in fact is at the heart of the conspiracy against the British people. Voting currently is no more than a gauge of maturity of the working people. And we realise we have to organise, take real economic